Tired of jumping through hoops to buy Bitcoin? Frustrated with endless paperwork and invasive identity checks? Introducing Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club's loan program. No KYC required. Say goodbye to the hassle and hello to freedom. Borrow up to $250,000 at as little as 7% interest. Join our community and take control of your financial future. Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, where privacy meets opportunity. Connect with like-minded individuals and grow together. Visit us today and unlock your $250,000 Bitcoin loan. Your journey to financial freedom starts here.
Good morning and welcome to the club, folks. Welcome to the Bitcoin Ben show. Your favorite truck driver in the whole wide world, ex-truck driver in the whole wide world. And let's take a look at the world. It's a shit show. Of course it is. Guys, I don't know anyone who's looking at the world right now and like, good job. We're killing this. We're absolutely rocking. Boy, 2026 is just off to a great start, isn't it? I want to talk, well, plus it's Friday, so we are going to have some fun today. We are going to look at the world in the lens of the elites hate us. They want to kill us. They want to use our labor to create the world they want through influencing us through Hollywood. And whatever we see, humans will create. That's basically what we are. We are little, I guess you could say, as a society, we're like 3D printers. That's what we do. Oh, I have an idea. Let me build a house. What do? We kind of print it. We chop a tree down. We use this, we use our energy and we get a couple of trees. We knock them down. We pile them up like Tetris. Then we build a house. Like, oh, look at the humans. We printed a house. Well, the elites have used us to create the world that they wanted. All right, like I said, this is Friday, so we're going to have some fun and watch. I love this gal. All right, we are going to find out exactly why we are led by aliens. Jump in there, gal.
Farrell and I did a great 2-hour interview called Who is Mr. Global?
Mm-hmm.
And we went through every different hypotheses.
What do you mean? Can you define Mr. Global?
Is the committee that runs the world. So
Okay.
There's a committee at the top that makes all the big decisions. And my nickname for it is Mr. Global. So the question is, who is Mr. Global and why is Mr. Global doing what he's doing? Because when I look at a situation, I like to put myself in somebody else's shoes. Like if I was Danny and I was doing this, what would it look like from my point of view? And so I want to put myself in why is Mr. Global doing this? What's Mr. Global's point of view? So anyway, Joseph and I went through and did Who is Mr. Global and why is he doing what he's doing? So we went through all the theories, but some of my favorite comments on the internet is they'll say, well, she worked at the White House and she knows who she's not telling us. It's like, no, everybody at the White House is not sure.
Who's your best guess of who Mr. Global is?
I think you have intergenerational pools of capital, and right now they are over influenced by a cult. So I think you have interdimensional intelligence, which is operating demonic intelligence.
Interdimensional demonic intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this thing about good and evil is real. And I can't find it anymore. I found it once. There were in the 30s, a British physicist got up and said, we're we are being manipulated, but from other dimensions by intelligent beings from other dimensions. So I think, if you study Christianity and you read the Bible, you're dealing with both divine intelligence and demonic intelligence. And I think too much of the leadership has gotten deeply involved in the occult and demonic kinds of intelligence.
Wow.
So I just read a book and I have no idea. So I've tried to find every theory to explain the paranormal stuff. So I'm not telling you this is true, but I just finished reading a book called Final Event by Nick Redfern. I don't know if you've ever read it. And he describes it's a exploration of a group of military intelligence in the United States called the Collins Elite.
Oh yeah, I've heard about the Collins Elite. Yeah.
And they came to believe that the ET phenomena was a demonic phenomena. It was not people from another planet. It was demonic intelligence.
It was biblical stuff.
Right. And one of the things he discovered was that, or the Collins Elite apparently discovered, is in many sort of ET abduction events, if you called on Jesus Christ, it would stop.
What?
Yeah. That's what he reported. And he strikes me, I don't know anything about him, but it struck me as someone who was trying to do a faithful job of simply reporting what they found.
There's a lot of folks in the intelligence community that publicly state how they believe that the whole UFO phenomena is like this biblical thing. How it's angels and demons, and these things can be angelic entities, and like literal, like ground, like legitimate people in the intelligence community, whether they're still active or retired or whatever, that have been on podcasts that state they believe. So
I am sure that all of that stuff is happening. So I think we are dealing with demonic and angelic forces in our world, and that's interdimensional intelligence. So the Bible calls it, demons and angels. Other people call it fifth dimension or whatever. Yeah. But I think we're absolutely, and I will tell you what I think is the most important thing to understand about the universe. So write this down. This is my favorite. My favorite new book is A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple.
Oh yeah.
99% of the material in the universe is plasma. Our universe is made up of plasma. And I used to hear that David Bohm said this, and other physicists as well, but Temple's really documented and nailed it. And I'm sure he's right. Plasma is alive and it's intelligent. And that means life is alive and intelligent.
Plasma or dark matter?
Plasma.
Plasma.
But, let me make it simple. The universe is alive and intelligent.
Sure.
And we share intelligence with all life. So in the Lord of the Rings, when the trees show up to help, that's real.
Right.
So life is alive. And the notion that you can take digital technology and control it centrally, once you understand that, is so ridiculous. Only a demonic intelligence would come up with that plan.
Huh.
Right?
Have you noticed this recent phenomena of, and there's been articles written about it, of essentially a lot of big shots in Silicon Valley are mapping Christianity now onto everything that's going on in Silicon Valley. There's a new church in Silicon Valley that everyone's going to. Peter Thiel and the head of this company called Y Combinator are, Peter Thiel is a famous billionaire gay Christian, and the guy from Y Combinator is a big devout Christian, and they're holding these big conferences, and all these folks in Silicon Valley seem to be now converting to Christianity, going to church, and it's just really interesting to me, because Silicon Valley is, historically known for being like anti-religion, right? Like it's not been a typical religious part of the world in history. These people are, a lot of people developing tech and developing, these social media platforms, transhumanism, and
I know nothing about it.
Yeah. There's been a lot of articles. There was an article in the New York Times that came out, I think the New Yorker, and it's really interesting to me that somebody like Peter Thiel would be in, somebody who's, very much tied up in the military industrial complex, the
I would
intelligence
say
community.
that there is a non-alignment between the teachings of Jesus Christ and what Peter Thiel and his companies are doing.
Yeah.
So,
But I it makes me wonder though, why somebody like Peter Thiel would be so invested in promoting Christianity in Silicon Valley.
I don't know. I would need to understand a lot more.
I wonder if it has something to do with trying to bolster Christianity in the United States, or sort of revive Christianity in some sort of a national security aspect.
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that there has been so much financial fraud and corruption that you have a real breakdown in productivity in the general population. And so, there is a vested interest, if you don't want to depopulate everybody, and getting everybody to be productive. And they're not going to be productive unless they believe in morals and have morals. So, our problem, the reason the unipolar model failed, in my opinion, is we're not agreement capable. And the leadership is not agreement capable, but now the message is the population, you don't need to be agreement capable.
Mm-hmm.
And when a complex society depends on the rule of law, or at least the appearance of the rule of law, you take away the ability to be agreement capable, and the society fails.
She ain't wrong. See, and I love that it's Friday, so I get do kind of woo-woo shit and stuff like that. Now, we've heard a lot of the Jews lately. It's the Jews. It's the Jews. Well, what the fuck if it was the Jews? Okay, we are gonna watch. There was a book written in 1921, I think, by Henry Ford. If you have not listened to this book, highly recommend it, because it is fucking interesting. The name of it is The International Jew. Now, I'm going to play a summary of it, and I want you to just realize that this was in 1921. This is after World War I and not yet World War II, and leading up to 1929. I'll say one word and then I'll play it. And I think some of you are kind of get it. Zion, or a Zionist. Let me play this real quick. Remember, this is Friday. We're having fun. But I'll be a motherfucker if this shit don't make sense. See, that's what's really frightening, is when you jump in the rabbit hole and that motherfucker is crazier than you thought it was. And yes, yes, interdimensional beings. Alex Jones was right. They're under the Denver airport. Like Alex Jones used to say, they're under the Denver airport. That's where they live. Oh my God, I have that book. My dad had it in his library. I have that exact 1920 book. Yeah, especially, hey dude, if, just because of my research, if that's an original, if that's a, what the fuck they call it, a first print, that thing is worth some money, because the original print has shit that the future ones did don't have, because they actually removed, once he died, they removed shit out of it. I'm telling you, shit. All right, like I said, this here, what we are about to watch is, it explains what's in the book very generally, but when you listen to the book, it's mind-blowing because there's so much. Remember, Henry Ford wrote this, but he wrote it and he was living through all of the events that he's writing about. This isn't him, hey, I heard a rumor. Remember, this is Henry Ford, who worked with the bankers, worked with the Jewish communities in England and London and France. He worked with the bankers, and he wrote the book about the fucking bankers. This is Henry Ford. This is not some fucking whacked out fucking guy who is like, he wrote it from experience of what was going on at the time. All right. Hang on 1 second.
Today, we take a look into a controversial American publication from the early 20th century, The International Jew. Compiled by Henry Ford and the editors of the Dearborn Independent, the work was released across 4 volumes between 1920 and 1922. The series presents a unified argument that Jewish communities worldwide operate as a coordinated political and national force. A force, the authors claim, seeks dominance through influence in finance, culture, and politics. This summarizes the content of the book as it was written, focusing on its internal claims, structure, and themes. The publication is organized into 4 volumes. Each volume addresses a specific arena in which the editors believed Jewish power operated. Volume 1 outlines what the authors describe as the World Program. Volume 2 discusses Jewish activities in the United States. Volume 3 addresses cultural and social influence. Volume 4 presents additional sectors of alleged influence and concludes with a call to action. Throughout all 4 volumes, the authors frame their work as an investigation into what they term the Jewish question. Volume 1, The International Jew. Volume 1 establishes the foundation of the series. Its central argument is that Jewish communities constitute what the authors describe as a supernation, bound together by racial solidarity, economic cooperation, and political intention. The volume begins by portraying the Jew as an enigma. According to the text, Jewish people possess skill in finance and speculation, but are described as having a distaste for manual or physical labor. From this portrayal, the authors argue that Jewish influence is disproportionately expressed through control of money, trade, and international finance. They claim this influence forms the basis of an alleged global program. A critical element of Volume 1 is the introduction of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. The editors present the protocols as a blueprint for autocratic world domination, describing methods of control such as manipulating public opinion, exploiting political divisions, and weakening social institutions. The authors argue that the protocol's emphasis on the weaknesses of Gentile society, its susceptibility to greed, disorganization, and passion, is evidence of a planned strategy based on divide and rule. Volume 1 also links Jewish influence to revolutionary movements, particularly Bolshevism in Russia. The series cites Jewish participation in the Russian Revolution and references individuals such as Leon Trotsky as examples of what it views as a revolutionary tendency within Jewish political activity. This volume sets the tone for the rest of the series by asserting that Jewish influence is organized, deliberate, and global in scope. Volume 2, Jewish Activities in the United States. Volume 2 shifts focus from international themes to domestic American institutions. The authors argue that Jewish financiers and industrialists control large portions of American industry. The book lists sectors such as banking, natural resources, agricultural commodities, meatpacking, and theatrical and motion picture production as areas of concentrated Jewish influence. The volume then examines the First World War. It highlights the role of Bernard M. Baruch, claiming he exercised extensive authority during wartime administration. The book characterizes this influence as an example of disproportionate power held by Jewish individuals in government and finance. Another central topic in Volume 2 is Jewish nationalism in America. The authors cite organizations such as the New York Kehillah as evidence of coordinated Jewish efforts to protect group interests. The volume argues that these organizations sometimes oppose policies that the editors consider American, such as certain immigration restrictions or Sabbath-related laws. Finally, the book discusses the Federal Reserve System, identifying Paul M. Warburg as its principal architect. The authors describe the system as a private banking arrangement, capable of influencing national and international monetary conditions. In the narrative of the book, this is presented as another example of what the editors consider Jewish financial control. Volume 3, Jewish Influences in American Life. Volume 3 expands the discussion into culture, labor, and politics. One of the major themes is the portrayal of Jewish influence in American entertainment. The authors argue that Jewish producers dominate the theatrical and motion picture industries and claim that these industries promote immoral or sensational cultural content. The volume also discusses the rise of jazz music, portraying it as a disruptive cultural force and attributing its spread to Jewish influence. Another section focuses on political organizations, particularly Tammany Hall, New York. The authors argue that Jewish involvement replaced earlier Irish influence and redirected political activity toward profit rather than civic engagement. The book further examines labor movements. It claims that Jewish individuals played roles in both radical and conservative labor factions, presenting this dual involvement as a strategy for influence. Finally, Volume 3 addresses the concept of persecution. The authors argue that accusations of anti-Semitism are used to silence criticism. They claim that Jewish leaders internally acknowledge tensions with Gentile governance, while publicly denying them. Volume 4, Aspects of Jewish Power in the United States. The fourth and final volume contains a collection of additional themes and case studies. One topic is the liquor industry. The authors argue that Jewish involvement led to the production of inferior alcoholic products and associated this with social disorder. After Prohibition, the volume claims widespread Jewish participation in bootlegging operations. The book also examines the question of Jewish identity. It argues that Jewish leaders present Judaism as a religion to outsiders, while internally emphasizing racial or national characteristics. Another section discusses historical events, including the case of the Franks family during the American Revolutionary period. The authors describe the family as army contractors and assert that their activities contributed to Benedict Arnold's moral decline. The volume concludes with a call to action directed at Gentile Americans. The editors argue that the proper response to the conditions described in the previous volumes is not hostility, but publicity. They advocate raising awareness, reinforcing what they describe as Gentile moral and cultural standards, and ensuring that all ideas, including those they associate with Jewish influence, be openly identified. Across all 4 volumes, the authors employ a recurring metaphor. They present the international Jew as a hidden stage manager, directing global events from behind the scenes. According to the series, financial systems, political revolutions, cultural changes, and social conflicts are portrayed as components of a unified plan. The therefore suggests that Gentile societies believe they are acting freely, while in the author's narrative, they are subject to external manipulation. This metaphor serves as the conceptual framework for the entire publication. The International Jew stands today as one of the most prominent examples of early 20th century conspiracy literature in the United States. Today, we have summarized the book's structure, its internal logic, its themes, and the specific arguments made by Henry Ford and the editors of the Dearborn Independent. The work remains a significant historical artifact, not for the accuracy of its content, but for its influence, its reach, and its role in shaping public discourse during its era.
All right, and we're back. Yes, today's Friday, so we're having I wouldn't even call it a woo-woo show. This is more of a what the fuck kind of show. Because after the break, we are going to go into, I'll give you a little hint. Albert Pike. That's a little hint for what's coming up after the commercial break, which is in a few minutes. Now, let's go over what we just saw. All right, so this was The International Jew by Henry Ford. Now, we had a great question over here from Johnny Holder. All right, hey, Ben, are these the real Jews or the namesayers? That's a great fucking point. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are Jews which are genetically Jewish. Then there are Khazarian Jews. Those are Germanic Jews. Right? They are not genetically Jewish. I got news for you guys. If you see a white guy who says he's Jewish, guess what? He ain't fucking really Jewish. All right? That's the equivalent of me saying I'm a Southern Baptist and I'm black. But I'm not black. This is the Khazarian Jews. This was, God, hundreds of years ago. Almost 1,000 years ago, actually. The Khazarians, they were a tribe. Oh, well, they were a country, but not much of a country. They absolute criminals. Let's just put it this way. They robbed everyone that they ran into. And what they would do is they'd actually meet people on the Silk Road. Silk Road was the early supply chain-ish, where it was China to like Europe. And it was actually called the Silk Road. Well, the Khazarian Jews would rob and kill people and then actually pretend that they were them. And they'd go where they were going and rob the people that they were going to meet. And they, at that point, the religions that existed were Catholic and Muslim and Jewish. Now, mind you, at this time, there was only like maybe 750,000 Jews in the whole world. In the whole world, maybe, if they were lucky. The Muslims and the Christians, which were, they were like the major religions, and the governments, really. The Catholic Church and the Muslims were basically, the religions were basically like the government. And they basically told the Khazarians, look, you have to choose a religion, Christianity or Muslim or Jewish. Well, the Khazarians chose Jewish, and they changed their name. All right, let's all remember that Lenin, and when I say Lenin, I mean the Russian guy, all right? The revolution. His last name wasn't Lenin. He changed his name when he joined the revolution. Lenin was a Jew, and so was Trotsky. Let's just all remember this. Remember, Rothschilds, they changed their names. This, and maybe on Monday, how about this next Friday? I'll explain and I'll show you guys how a few hundred years ago, there was a movement, and history calls it the Age of Enlightenment and all this. But really what it was creating identities. All right. In the past, your name, let's say me, all right, my name would not actually be what it is. It would be, I am Benjamin, son of Thomas from St. Louis, or of St. Louis. All right, that would be my name. Right? That's why we have three names, because originally it was your name, your father's name, and where you guys were from. So that was your identity. Well, surprise, fucking prize. The elites, the Jewish bankers, were requiring identity for you to have an account at their bank. So they worked with local governments to set up the legal identity structure for each of the countries. We will talk about that next Friday. All right, hang on one second. Word from the sponsor. Then we're going to jump right in on Albert Pike and his plan for the 3 world wars. And when you hear it, right now, you're going to go, oh, that seems kind of odd. Hold, please.
Ever wondered how safe your online activities really are? How secure is your digital footprint? In the vast realm of the internet, privacy and security are paramount. Without adequate protection, your personal data might be at risk. There are solutions to these issues, and today we're going to talk about 2 of them. Introducing Liberty Laptops from Calyx Solutions. These cutting-edge devices are meticulously designed to bolster online privacy, providing you the liberty to surf the internet incognito. The World Wide Web can be a wild frontier, but with Liberty Laptops, your online privacy is always protected. We also present you crypto laptops designed with cryptocurrency users in mind. Equipped to support a myriad of wallets and exchanges, these laptops are tailored for seamless cryptocurrency transactions. They offer enhanced security protocols to keep your digital assets safe. Crypto Laptops ensures a secure and smooth cryptocurrency experience. It's time to take control of your online privacy and security. Venture over to Calyx Solutions and explore our Liberty laptops and crypto laptops. Don't forget, our affiliate program lets you earn $50 per sale. Visit calyxsolutions.io now or call 7028458276 for more information, because your online safety is our priority.
You're damn right it is. Good morning, everybody. How are you guys? All right, here we go. Now, we are going to jump over on Andrew Pike. And this guy fucking deserves to be jumped all over. All right. Now, the video I'm going to show you guys, I think this is from the late 90s. I think like 1997, 1998, maybe earlier. I'm not for sure. Let's jump right in here.
Albert Pike was one of the most colorful characters in American history. It is said that he was born on December 29th, 1809 in Boston, was the eldest son of 6 children born to Benjamin and Sarah Andrew Pike. He studied at Harvard and later served as Brigadier General of the Confederate Army. After the Civil War, Pike was found guilty of treason and jailed, only to be pardoned by President Andrew Jackson on April 2nd, 1866, who met with him the next day at the White House. On June 20th, 1867, Scottish Rite officials conferred upon Johnson 32nd degree Freemasonry degrees. Pike was said to be a genius, able to read and write 16 languages. He was one of the founding fathers of the head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, being the Grand Commander of North America Freemasonry from 1859, and retained that position until his death in 1891. In 1869, he was the top leader of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Pike was said to be a Satanist who indulged in the occult, and he apparently possessed a bracelet which he used to summon Lucifer, with whom he had constant communication. He was the Grand Master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Palladium, or of Sovereign Council of Wisdom, it's also been called, which had been founded in Paris in 1737. Now, General Albert Pike was the only Confederate general with a statue on federal property in Washington, D.C. He was honored not as a commander or even as a lawyer, but as Southern Regional Leader of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. The statue stands on a pedestal near the foot of Capitol Hill between the Department of Labor building and the Municipal building between 3rd and 4th Streets on D Street Northwest. Now, I tell you all of this because it is said that he received a vision from his mentor, Mr. Lucifer, I guess, on August 15th, 1871. And William Guy Carr, former intelligence officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, wrote a book called Satan, Prince of this World, in which he gives this information. He said that he received this information from a book written by Cardinal Caro Rodriguez in Santiago, Chile, who wrote in 1925 a book called The Mystery of Freemasonry Unveiled. And in this book, in 1925, it is said that he wrote a letter to a man named Mazzini in which he described this dream. And in the dream, he predicted 3 world wars. The First World War, he said, must be brought about, and I'm quoting from Albert Pike. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and German empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. Now, students of history will know that Otto von Bismarck forged certain alliances between 1871 and 1898, which brought about this war, this World War I. And Otto von Bismarck here says that he was a co-conspirator with Albert Pike, and he was the one instrumental in bringing about the First World War. Well, that's the First World War. Then he dreams that there must be, he is given in this visionary dream, a Second World War. Now remember, this was in 1925 that it became public in this book written by a cardinal from Santiago, Chile, Rodriguez. He says, quote, "The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism will be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm." Well, there are some who may argue that the terms Nazism and Zionism were not known in 1871. You should remember, however, that the Illuminati invented both of these movements. In addition, communism as an ideology and as a coined phrase originates in France during the Revolution. In 1785, Restif coined the phrase 4 years before the Revolution broke out. Restif and Babeuf, in turn, were influenced by Rosé, as was the most famous conspirator of them all, Adam Weishaupt. Then he has this vision, in this vision, not only one world war and two world wars, but here comes the Third World War. He says, and I quote, "The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world." Yeah, that's what he says. The war, this was 1920.
All right, now let's remember. Let's go back a second. Let's listen to what he says.
And the leaders of the Islamic. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Yeah, that's what he's.
Okay, now let's think for a second, guys. The guy that we just blew the shit out of over in Iran was not just the leader of Iran. He was the leader of the sect of Islam. So he was the church leader. That's the equivalent of if someone actually blew up Rome and wiped out the Pope. So we basically just killed the Pope of Islam. So let's let him continue.
The phrase 4 years before the revolution broke out. Restif and Babeuf, in turn, were influenced by Rosé, as was the most famous conspirator of them all, Adam Weishaupt. Then he has this vision, in this vision, not only one world war and two world wars, but here comes the Third World War. He says, and I quote, "The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world." Yeah, that's what he says. The war, this was 1925. Please understand that. At least 1925. May go all the way back to 1871, as is purported to do, but at least it was written in a book and published in 1925. So he says, after World War I was just over a few years, and before World War II even started, he's now thinking about this Third World War, and it says that it will be caused by the differences between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. That's what it says. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm in which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin and savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. So he's against Christianity and he's against atheism. They're supposed to fight each other to the death, you see. Then he says, everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. That's what he says. Brought finally out in the public view. So he's saying that Lucifer will finally make himself, the good guy. He's going to save the world from these atheists who don't believe in deity and from these Christians who believe in the good God. Well, so it says, this manifestation will result in the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Well, I don't know if it's true, but I can tell you that it sure has played into what is being carried on in the Middle East today. And it looks like everything from World War I and World War II, with the development of the state of Israel, and with the Zionist movement and the communist movement and the atheist movement, and the peppering down of persecution on the Christians of this world, it looks like that may be Lucifer's attempt at annihilation of us all, so that Lucifer will appear in the form, of course, of what the Bible calls the Antichrist, and establish peace on earth for mankind. I got news for all those Illuminatists. Their little plan will only last for 3.5 years and will be destroyed by the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, who, by the way, is going to take all of us Christians out of this world before the 7 years sets in, before this Luciferian ideal can capture the imaginations of people on planet Earth. There won't be a fight between Christianity and atheism, because we will be gone. But the atheists, they might meet their demise at the hands of the Antichrist.
All right, let me remove this guy. Okay, now, I know this sounds wild, all right, but I've looked at that book, and it was written in like 1924 or something. I think he's right. That, remember, there wasn't a World War II yet. There wasn't in Israel. There wasn't any of that yet. And then explaining World War III with the Zionists up against Islam. Now, notice it doesn't say the Jews against Islam, because the Jews in Andrew Hike's writings, the Jews used the Zionist, the Goy, as their army. In fact, Andrew Hike says that America was created for the Goy. I'm telling you what I know. Now, why is this important? Let me explain. There's a place in Israel that is called the Dome of the Rock. Now, the Dome of the Rock is very important because you have to, and we are going to watch a clip on it. And I'm sorry if we go a little wrong. This is just how important this is. The Dome of the Rock is a Muslim worshiping place and a Jewish worshiping place because the dome is over a rock. That's why it's called the Dome of the Rock. Well, the rock is supposedly where Muhammad went up to heaven. But also, this was the altar rock of the first temple of the Jews. Now, this video I'm going to show you explains it a whole lot better.
Monotheistic Abrahamic religions. It has stood the test of time for more than 1,000 years and has been viewed by the Dome of the Rock. Few monuments can boast of being so religiously important to three of the major monotheistic Abrahamic religions. It has stood the test of time for more than 1,000 years and has been viewed by many historical figures with awe, one of which, the 14th century travel writer Ibn Battuta, provides us with a fitting description, calling it a building of extraordinary beauty, solidity, elegance, and singularity of shape, both outside and inside. The decoration is so magnificent and the workmanship so surpassing as to defy description. The greater part is covered with gold, so that the eyes of one who gazes on its beauties are dazzled by its brilliance, now glowing like a mass of light, now flashing like lightning. Even in popular culture, most people know that this is a pretty important building, but some might not necessarily know why this is the case. In order to figure it out, we have to delve into theology a little bit. The main reason being that the Dome of the Rock is built over something called a foundation stone. For Muslims, this was the starting point of the Prophet Muhammad's night journey to heaven, a really momentous occasion in the Islamic tradition. But the foundation stone also bears relevance for Jews as well, the main reason being that it's considered the starting point from where the world expanded into its present form and where God gathered the dust used to create the first human being, Adam. However, other reasons have been put forward for the construction of the Dome of the Rock. For instance, the desire to proclaim the emergence of Islam as a supreme new faith. In this sense, the dome may have been intended to rival that of the Christian holy buildings of Jerusalem, such as the domed Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They both have domes that are almost identical in size, and the elevated position of the Dome of the Rock suggests that it may have been a way to proclaim the superiority of Islam over Christianity. This view is further backed up if we look at some of the Arabic inscriptions on the outside of the dome, which presents a selection of passages from the Quran that paraphrases Islam's view on Jesus, mainly that it denounces the Christian doctrines of the Trinity and the divinity of Jesus, but at the same time emphasizing the unity of God and confirming Jesus' status as a prophet in Islam. Like so many other architectural masterpieces, the Dome of the Rock's value can be appreciated from a mathematical point of view due to its usage of proportion. For example, each of the outer walls is 67 feet long, which is exactly the same as the dome's diameter and which is also the height from the base to the drum. As you can see, a lot of thinking went into it. Oh, and I almost forgot, it's located on the Temple Mount, the Haram al-Sharif, which can be argued to be one of the most religiously significant places on earth, since it houses monuments which are integral to all three of the Abrahamic religions. Okay, now that we know why it's so important, let's move on to understanding a basic chronology of its history. Because this area is important to all three of the Abrahamic faiths, we're going to witness a high degree of civilizational continuity, meaning that each new power and dynasty is going to build on what they've inherited from the previous one. Our story starts with the Jewish Second Temple, which was itself built over the first Jewish temple. Then the Romans came into the area driven by the zeal of imperial expansion and built a temple dedicated to Jupiter, their main god. The Dome of the Rock as we know it today was completed in 691 AD at the order of the Umayyad Khalif Abdul Malik. Since then, it suffered from multiple earthquakes and therefore has required a lot of restoration work done to it. Now, when the Crusaders took over Jerusalem in the 12th century, the Dome of the Rock retained its significance because it was regarded by the Knights Templar as being the site of the Temple of Solomon, and they actually used it on their official seals as well. Later on, when the Knights Templar would return back to continental Europe, the Dome of the Rock would serve as an architectural model for round Templar churches all across Europe. When Saladin conquered the city in 1187, he reconsecrated the Dome of the Rock as a mosque and replaced the cross with a crescent. One of the most strikingly beautiful aspects of this monument are the multicolored tiles on its exterior. These are thanks to Suleiman the Magnificent, who was the Ottoman Sultan in the 16th century. Fast forward to the 20th century, a lot of restoration work was done at the beginning of it by Haji Amin al-Husseini. No, not that guy. Yeah, that guy. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. But much of this was unfortunately undone again by an earthquake. And since the creation of the State of Israel, the dome's refurbishments have been largely carried out by the Jordanian government. Nothing has the potential to be as dogmatic as religion can be. So when you view a religious monument from a theological lens, often it blinds you from viewing the complexity of its cross-cultural and historical interactions that have come to form it. The Dome of the Rock is a perfect example of this. It sheds a light onto how early Islam interacted with some of its neighboring states, even gaining inspiration from them. And this is seen in the form of the Dome of the Rock, which was influenced by Sasanian and Byzantine architecture. We know this because some of the interior mosaics are similar in technique to those found in Byzantine churches such as San Vitale in Ravenna, Italy. Also, some of the columns supporting the inner octagon and the center circle are of different sizes. This suggests that they were recycled from previous structures, something which is very common in Levantine architecture. Even the form of the architectural dome follows the Byzantine model of churches. We see this with the Hagia Sophia. The fact that the Dome of the Rock gained inspiration from non-Islamic sources is not intended to undermine the spiritual value of the monument. In fact, part of the reason why some of the early Islamic powers like the Umayyad Caliphate and the Abbasid Caliphate became world powers was their willingness to be able to learn from their competitors. We can see this through the Islamic world's vivid and dynamic interaction with classical Greek Hellenistic philosophy. This is in many ways a stark contrast to the rigidity and black and white approach that has characterized a lack of progress in much of the Islamic world in the last 100 or so years. As usual, I want to thank you all.
Okay, now let me explain something. Mr. Netanyahu, yesterday, he was at a press conference. If he's even alive, a lot of people are saying that the press conference was AI. There are parts of it where he has 6 fucking fingers, which is weird because he don't have 6 fingers on one hand. Now, if that's AI, I don't know yet. Don't worry, guys. I'm monitoring the situation. Now, what makes this relevant is Netanyahu yesterday in the interview explained how they will see the Messiah, just not next week. Now, if you know the history of him, of actual Netanyahu, this guy has been trying to bring the Messiah for 40 fucking years. Now, why is this important? That mosque that Dome of the Rock under the Israeli religion and under Islam, that has to be destroyed. For in Islam, the rise of Muhammad. And in Jewish, that's when the Messiah comes. Remember, the Jews don't believe Jesus was the Messiah. They acknowledge his existence, but they don't believe Jesus was the Messiah. They believe that once the dome is destroyed, then that will lead to the return, all right, of the Messiah. And over in Islam, once the dome is destroyed, that's when hell on earth is reigned on earth. And this is not bullshit. This is in the Quran. Once it is destroyed, a child will crawl out of a well. There's a well over in the Middle East that they're waiting for the child to crawl out of the well. And that child is Muhammad. And then they have the huge world war that is in Revelations. Now, why is this important? Because what we're seeing in Iran, all right, the leader of our Department of War, a few years ago, he was in Israel, and I'm talking about Hesek, or Heslik, or whatever the hell his name is. All right. He was over in Israel doing a lecture and also doing a tour. And he explained during the interview how he was there and how excited he was that soon Jesus would be returning, and that he was so proud to walk through the dome, because and this is not exaggerating, the dome is half and half. Half of it is Jewish, half of it is Muslim. They have a wall up. I'm not fucking shitting you guys. There's walls surrounding the rock. Half of it is where the Jewish people worship. The other half is where the Islamic people worship. They're worshiping the rock. They're praying to the rock. Now, why is this important? Because Iran has already said, fuck you guys, fuck you kids. We ain't going to quit this war until we bring back Muhammad. So, and Israel wants to bring their Messiah, because according to each of the religions, Muhammad has to go to war with the Jewish Messiah. That's the war. Now, whether you actually believe that this is real is irrelevant, because they do. This is their religion. Remember, guys, a lot of you watching right now, you live in the West. We are not religiously oriented. All right, we're Americans, or we're Western, so we worry about freedom and liberty and all that good stuff. But in the rest of the world, everything is led through religion. Over in China, you have Confucius, which is kind of like their religion, which is what communism is actually based on. Over in the Middle East, you have Islam and you have Jews. Now, there are Christian people there. Those are the Goy, all right? A lot of them are Zionist. What makes this important is the longer this war goes, because remember, both sides want the war. I think Trump is there. This is just me thinking out loud. I think Trump is there to work his ass off to make sure or try and limit this war. Because the moment, I mean the fucking moment that a weapon, anything, hits that fucking dome, it's on like fucking Donkey Kong. And I mean, the Muslims are already freaked out because remember, there are two sects of the Muslims. All right. Well, they've already said if someone hits the mosque, that's what they consider the dome, is a mosque. If anyone fucking destroys that the two Muslim sects will unite. Guys, for thousands of years, the Muslim sects have been at war with each other over who's more Muslim. and that's what the war is who's really a Muslim. Yes. The Sunnis and the Shiites. Yes, thank you. So you have the Sunnis and the Shiites have been at war forever and a fucking day. And those two are at war with Israel. But they've had wars with each other more than they've had wars with Israel. Because they're at war to actually find out who's the real Muslims, so that when Muhammad comes back, who will lead the revolution with Muhammad? So, what to watch for is the dome. If anything hits the dome, if any weapon, any bomb, anything, because we remember what I said, they both want the war. Israel wants the war. It's why October 7th happened. Right? October 7th was an inside job. That was their 9/11. That was the leadership of Israel crashing planes into their equivalent of the Twin Towers. That was Israel's inside job, was October 7th. This is what this is all for. We are sitting here. Why are we at war? Why is America at war? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Right? It's because there are Zionists. Zionists' job is to help Israel achieve its goal. This is a religious thing, guys. A lot of us can't wrap our heads around it. This, and remember, in the Quran and in the Old Testament and the other Jewish books, it talks about not only will the earth shake, but the markets will shake and collapse. So I highly recommend getting some Bitcoin. And if you want to know KYC, you give us a call, 941-413-8080, and we can get you some Bitcoin non-KYC. Everybody, I hope you learned a lot from this episode. Remember, it's Friday, and we're at war, and they want this war, each side. Islam wants this war, and Israel wants this war. Guess who don't want this fucking war? All of us. Well, we are not the active players in this. Whew. Everyone, have a great day. Enjoy your Friday and get some Bitcoin. Love you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.
Tired of jumping through hoops to buy Bitcoin? Frustrated with endless paperwork and invasive identity checks? Introducing Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club's loan program. No KYC required. Say goodbye to the hassle and hello to freedom. Borrow up to $250,000 at as little as 7% interest. Join our community and take control of your financial future. Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, where privacy meets opportunity. Connect with like-minded individuals and grow together. Visit us today and unlock your $250,000 Bitcoin loan. Your journey to financial freedom starts here.